anything that I personally can do, and I'm sure for the rest of the board the same thing, to help you in your effort next year to espouse that leadership message among the faculty and among the students, I'm here for you.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Thank you for that. Any other questions about the faculty representatives report? Comments? I see Connor's not here, so we don't have a student trustees report. Did you do one in writing or no? No. Okay. That brings us to board business, and item 6A is our annual organizational meeting where we are, by our charter section B by majority vote of the board, elect a chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. And so with that in mind, let's open up the floor for nominations for those various offices.
Well, I'd like to nominate Bob Bass for chair.
Second.
I'm honored for the nomination. Are there other nominations for chair? Do we want to let's take all the nominations first and then we'll vote all at once. If there's no other nominations for chair, is there a nomination for vice chair? I'd nominate Patty Humphrey for the seat as vice chair.
I'll second that. Approved by performance today.
Of course.
Especially because of the performance.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
A nomination and a second for Patty for vice chair. Any other nominations for vice chair? If none, are there any nominations for the office of secretary?
I nominate Sue Lawton for secretary.
I'll second that.
Nomination and a second for Sue as secretary. Any other nominations for secretary? That brings us to the office of treasurer. Are there any nominations for the office of treasurer? I second that. Any other nominations for the office of treasurer? Okay, so the nominations that we received for chair, myself, for vice chair, Patty, for secretary, Sue, for treasurer, Barbara. Are there any other nominations? Then let's vote as a slate on all of those. All in favor of that slate of officers, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? So that's a unanimous vote. I sort of feel a little guilty voting for myself. I would have abstained if I'd done it separately. If we put them all together, I couldn't, and neither could any of the other officers. So that bit of business is taken care of. Item 6B is board member renewals. Let me introduce this item. I don't know where we're at with this.
So board member renewals, we have Christy and Sue, whose terms expire at the end of the school year, coming from the parent advisory committee. And they've both expressed an interest to stay on for another year. According to the policy and advice from legal counsel, we are able to renew their term for one more year, and they would continue to represent the parent advisory committee.
Okay. So does that require a nomination or?
They would need to be nominated and voted on by the board.
Okay. Is anyone willing to make a nomination regarding our two parent steering committee?
Yes.
members or parent?
So nominated.
Second. Nominated by Matt, second by Patty, to have both Christy and Sue continue as our parent members of the board. Any discussion? I'll offer some discussion. Thank you so much for your willingness to do it again. You both have contributed a lot this year on the policy committee, coming to virtually every committee in the PTSA and all the involvement that you do. You've been fabulous friends and members of the board and contributors to Founders, so I couldn't think of two better people to stay with us for another year. That's my comment. If there are no other comments, all in favor of the election, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, so that is a unanimous vote. I'm glad to have you around for another year. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
We have item 6C is a policy committee report with 3 policies listed there. And they are, at least the DZA capital asset policy is in the package. Christy, you want to present this one?
Yeah, so we have the 2 that were presented at the last meeting, so we are ready for vote tonight. I have not received any feedback. We'll do one at a time. So DZA is a capital asset policy. And just to recap, this was based on recommendations from the auditors that we reduce the expenditure amount to $1,000 for capitalization. So, what was that? And so we presented this at the last meeting as policy, so we are here again. I did not receive any feedback from any other interested party. Did anybody else? Laura, did the clerk receive any? No? Okay. All right, so this one is ready for a vote by the board to become an official policy at this point. Sure.
Barbara, you have questions?
So is, looking at this, it says useful life, so is it for a lease only, or is it for the useful life on your capitalization, your buildings and infrastructure, your building improvements, useful life, and then you have just lease term here? So my question is the buildings and infrastructure, if you have on capitalization, are we talking about leases, because it says lease term versus years?
I believe we're talking years.
So
Okay.
if you had building infrastructure or building improvements that were capitalized, they would be capitalized over the remaining lease term, is what I think that means.
Okay.
You're more of the treasurer of the.
Well, because to me, a lease is, you lease something and then it's.
And it's renewable.
Renewable,
Every,
right.
it's, yeah, so it's
Okay.
ongoing for
Okay.
founders. It may not be that way if it was somebody else in the building, but for founders, it's ongoing.
Okay. And then I was just noticing that on some of the things, so, under group purchases, meets the 25,000 capitalization threshold, so we're talking about two different items. Over here. Also, and, under C, basic capital assets, we're talking about, that partially might exceed the capitalization threshold of 25,000.
So that
So-
should say 1,000.
So that's my question is I'm noticing that the 25,000 is, and on page 2, first paragraph, third paragraph.
On page 2,
Page 3, excuse me, because I was doing page 2, second page. First paragraph, last line, it says 25,000, and then the third paragraph, says $25,000 again.
2 times.
Yep. For example,
Twice in the third.
yeah, but that's something different. This, it says improvements may exceed, may not be capitalized, but it should be 1,000 there, so that also all should be changed.
Okay. Any other comments?
If you're going to move it forward.
So I would make a motion that we accept this with the changes Barbara has stipulated. As it has been read, we have opened it to the public, and these are the comments that we received.
Okay. Motion by Sue to adopt policy DZA as amended here tonight. Second? Second by Kim. Any further discussion?
I just want to make sure the clerk has the appropriate amendments that Barbara mentioned.
I can give her the sheet.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. If there are no other comments, all in favor of adopting policy DZA, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Unanimous vote to adopt policy DZA. That brings us to the next policy item, which is policy BG. Christie, tell us about that one.
All right, so this one was two policies that we had, BG and BGB, and we're merging them into one. And we changed a couple of things. Again, this was presented at we're in the May meeting, so this is the second presentation of it. What we did here is we changed a couple of minor things. We moved, you can see at the bottom, the statement, the board representing the community of the Founders Academy. We moved that statement to the second paragraph because it seemed to make more sense there. And then noted the merge point of the two. We also took out a repetitive statement regarding the final vote to adopt or not adopt should follow by at least 2 weeks from the meeting. And then one of the things that we also changed at the bottom, emergency procedure. It said, on matters of unusual urgency, the board may waive the 2-week limitation and take immediate action to adopt new or revise existing policies. When such immediate action is necessary, originally it said the dean shall inform concerned individuals about the reason. We changed that to the board, feeling that if the board had made the decision to have this emergency meeting, then it should be the board responsible for communicating that to the parties, rather than the board taking action and kind of leaving the dean with the hot potato. And that is.
Should that maybe read board chair? The board is a little vague.
So typically, the way that I would think that this occurs is that when the board takes up an emergency policy adoption, we'll do it here at a meeting, and we'll have some considered debate, and we'll say, well, we think this is an emergency because we can't wait. And the minutes will reflect the board's reasoning in that. And the board's informing the world comes through its minutes where it explains the decision made. From there, anybody that would look at those minutes and answer a telephone call from a parent or whatever would reiterate what the board had indicated in its communication. I don't think it's for any of us individually to. That's my thought of this, if someone disagrees.
We discussed that a little bit in the policy meeting, and left it, decided to leave it open, at least from our perspective, in case the chair of the board was not available, wasn't at that meeting. We didn't want any ambiguity about that, just to make it a little bit easier.
Sure. But the board itself is a collective body, so when it speaks at a meeting and it's recorded in its minutes, and that's a board message. Anybody else that sort of repeats that is just repeating a message the board's already adopted. There wouldn't be any individual who speaks for the board and crafts a message without a vote by the board as to why it was an emergency.
Understood.
And again, just without reading the whole thing, because again, we talked about it last time, and we've had, no one has gotten feedback from anybody, right? No interested parties. Laura, did you hear anything? No? Okay. And just to reiterate that really what this is we're going to make sure that going forward, and this has been the practice, I think as long as I've been aware of it, is that it's a two-meeting step. So that, we would introduce it at board business. That would give the public time to comment at that meeting if they should wish to do so during public comment. And then also we would accept emails, phone calls, whatever it is from any interested party before we then voted on at that second showing of the policy.
Any questions about the proposed policy BG? If not, is there a motion?
I would like to just make a point of, thanking the parent who brought their suggestion forward to continue this conversation. I don't want to blow over that fact that, somebody carried on to say, hey, can we go there and have this conversation, and we did. So I just want to make sure that that's somewhere.
Thank you for pointing that out, and I'm glad to recognize that that's what happened and be sort of grateful that we've got a system where an initiative can come forward in that way. There's an open line of communication available for those kinds of things. Other comments or questions on policy BG? If not, is there a motion with respect to policy BG?
I'll make the motion.
Move to adopt policy BG as discussed here tonight. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Kim. All in favor of adopting policy BG, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? So that's a unanimous vote to adopt policy BG. Thank you for that one, everyone. Then we've got a third policy on our agenda tonight, which is our school visitation policy. Chris, do you want to introduce that?
I'll introduce it. So we're going to be discussing the school visitation policy at a policy meeting, but we just wanted to bring it forward if anyone's interested in it. We're trying to tighten it up a little bit, so if some people are welcome to visit the building, we have the badge system, we go through all of the safety protocols. But when somebody's here to have a meeting or they're here for a reason, we want to make sure that that's where they're going, that's where they're staying. We have a lot of very involved people in the building, involved parents and so forth, with students here. And we want to be respectful of teachers' time and the teachers, being respectful of parents' time and stuff. So if there is something going on that requires a meeting, that the meeting is scheduled, somehow we'll come up with language for this to be more appropriate, but that we're all following the rules and having the meetings that people are expecting to have, when they're expecting to have them, not caught off guard.
Okay. Is there some language already here to that point, or are you
Nope.
plan to add that?
Nope.
Okay, so the idea is that when someone comes to a meeting that's at 9 a.m. to meet with Mr. Smith, whoever that teacher might be, that they come and they do that business and then they don't wander the halls and poke their heads into the room.
We love to involve people and we welcome it, but we want to be fair. There's a conversation and it could be serious in nature that everybody, parents, teachers, staff, administration, whoever it is, student services, that everybody's prepared for it.
Maureen, did you have a comment?
No, it's not, thank you.
You know, the other thing we want to make sure is we have teachers who are bringing students here, and we want to give them an opportunity to say, you're not being pompous by saying, I would like to make a meeting with you, fellow colleague, to talk about my student. We're actually giving them the bridge to do that. And it can be private, it can be behind a closed door, and we're helping them make that kind of communication not be obnoxious, it's necessary.
Okay.
Couple of pieces.
Since this is its first discussion and it hasn't been to the policy committee, does it require a vote of this board to refer to the policy committee, or are we just taking notice of this?
Just taking notice.
Okay, and is there any other discussion or questions about it at this point? Then let's look for the policy committee. So first of all, so the world can hear us do it and they can know that they can comment to the policy committee about it. But also invite us to think about it, know about it, and participate in the policy committee too if we choose to. So we look forward to whenever the policy committee completes its work on this. The one thing that I noticed about it is that it doesn't have the numbering system that we're kind of used to seeing in school systems, and I don't know if there's a place to fit it in within the lettering system. Whenever we go through these policies, and it's policy BG or DZA, those letters are actually significant. They can kind of tell you what department, whether it's administration or education or discipline or leadership.
I wondered silently whether those were arbitrary or.
And there is a pattern to that. I don't know if this particular policy has a place in that hierarchy, but if not, maybe we can assign it some letter code that seems most appropriate for where it fits into the system, so that we can consistently refer to our policies that way. Any other old board business? When it comes to item number 7, we've already dealt with 7A, which is the Nathan Wexler presentation. That brings us to item 7B, which is a mission committee. Do you want to introduce this item?
Sure. Patty Humphrey has been very strong regarding the mission, always bringing us back to it when we're discussing curriculum and so forth. And she wanted to introduce the concept of a mission committee as a board committee.
Okay.
I'll let her take it from there.
Well, at the best practices, I went to 2 speeches that were about board governance. And one was Mr. Donovan, that's his name, and who was the other one?
From Mills Falls.
Bill Paul's.
Merrill.
And I was amazed, actually, when they said that the main role of a board is to support the mission of the school. And I thought, wow, we've had a lot of challenges and things to go through, and then I felt to myself, to me, the mission of the school is the most important thing. I was never going to impose it on the board, but I found out that actually that's our job, is to support the mission. And so I wanted to propose a mission committee, but I wanted also for a minute or two, I know it's late, this came late in the meeting, to talk a little bit about the mission itself. And is it too late? Should we wait till another meeting to do that?
I'd like you to at least introduce the idea so we all know what we're thinking about, but I don't think it's too late to have the discussion.
Absolutely not.
Okay, so the founders of our country laid down a challenge to us. They said, we have created a republic if you can keep it. And that was what Franklin said, but that's a very famous thing. So what did they think was involved in keeping the republic? And well, they felt that we have tried to model our mission of the school around the exact words, and they all use these same words when they talked about how we would keep our republic. They felt that there had to be a virtuous they don't say good, they use the word virtuous, and educated populace devoted to preserving our liberties. And the only way that could be done was by a moral education, and one that gave the citizens the knowledge they needed to perpetrate the government that had been created. So I just want to read, I know you probably all are very familiar with this. I got tons of quotes. You could find a whole book of quotes on this because they all said the same thing. I like the Noah Webster. He wasn't exactly a founder, but he was very involved in education in the early republic. And so I'll read this and maybe one or two others. It is an object of vast magnitude that systems of education should be adopted and pursued, which may not only diffuse a knowledge of the sciences, but may implant in the minds of the American youth the principles of virtue and of liberty, and inspire them with just and liberal ideas of government, and with an inviolable attachment to their own country. So there you have the virtue, you have the liberty, and you also have patriotism as an absolute necessity for the preservation of a democratic republic. And there are many, many others. May somebody say their favorite founder, and I probably have does anyone have a favorite founder?
Jefferson.
Jefferson, okay. Educate and inform the whole mass of the people. They are the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. And you all heard that one before, that was Jefferson. And there's just, neither the wisest constitution nor the wisest laws will secure liberty and happiness of a people whose manners are universally corrupt, which our manners are becoming in our country. So, in other words, Maureen always says we character, leadership, American history, and liberty. But the four are not separate things at all. They're all connected. And if you consider the priority list of those, character has to come first. It can't be second, it can't be third, it can't be fourth. And what Jane read shows that we have succeeded in one way. Our code of conduct is the language that students use when they want to describe what a good person is. That has been exposed to them enough that is the language that they choose their student of the quarter with. They all use that language, and then when she asked them what constituted a leader in chorus, it was again and again they used that language. So we have been successful in that. But the main outlet for our mission on a daily basis is roundtable. And we have a roundtable curriculum, which has never been totally successful. There hasn't been complete buy-in, I don't think, by the teachers. And so as a committee to oversee the mission, I think we would want to work with the teachers, work with the students, to see if we can have a more effective way of making the mission identified completely with the school, with the curriculum in every way. And I don't think we've succeeded in doing that yet, which is not to say that we failed, none at all. It's just that in a thing like that, there's always way much more work that you can do. So I thought that we'd have a committee that would be made up of maybe one or two board members, if there are any that are interested, maybe one or two teachers, and I would like to see some students on this committee also. So I'm proposing that committee, there's infinite numbers of things that it could do, but we could probably take it one step at a time and just see how it goes.
Thank you for the presentation. I can offer you my own comment. I love the idea, and I would certainly volunteer myself on one condition. If you have students and teachers and board members on the board, the time of day where you might gather those people together can be a little difficult.
Right, well, I was thinking that I might have to meet with some people separately from others and then tell each group what the others are talking about, and maybe occasionally we could all meet together. That's the only way I can think of doing it.
Otherwise, I love the idea. I love reading quotes from the founding fathers and seeing some of the wisdom that they attempted to pass on. And sometimes we get it, and sometimes we've missed it for generations. Probably one of the weird people that reads a Federalist paper once in a while. Other comments and questions about it?
I hope I can be on it. I'd jump at the chance. I'd love to.
You were accepted as a member of the committee.
Excellent. Any other comments or questions? So I think that the process in order for the board to create a committee is to develop somewhat of a statement of what that committee's charge it will be, and certainly your suggestion as to membership seems like a fine suggestion. I don't think it requires any more laying out than that. But do you suppose that we have what we need to charge a committee tonight, or does it require us to think about it a little bit and put together a description of what that committee would be responsible to go do?
I think that, you know, as a board, we should, I mean, I love the idea and I love everything that you said, Patty, but I think that we should have something in written about the committee. You know, what are they,
I should have probably done that.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I will do that.
Exactly A, B, and C, this is what it's gonna be charged with.
Yeah.
Because without that in writing, the committee could just kind of veer. I mean, although we wanted to concentrate on what the mission of the school is, we wanted to be pretty stringent, I would think, as to what.
Well, just clarity, right? Clarity is important.
Yeah, that's what I want to do.
I think I would like to recommend, I mean, I think it sounds fantastic, and I think, I don't see any downside to it at all. I think the more attention we can give to the mission and share that is the better. I would like to suggest that we invite parents to also be part of that.
Okay.
Because you might have parents that are interested in that as well.
True.
Yeah, I mean, depending what they're,
Yeah,
So in that regard,
yep, yep.
when you think of who should be on a committee, there's a couple different ways to approach it. If you sort of say, well, we'll have 2 students and 2 board members and 2 faculty and 2 parents, you kind of leave yourself searching for those people, and sometimes you find them and sometimes you don't. The other possibility is that you can have a committee that's formed of the people you know you'll have, the faculty, the board, and invite some students, invite some parents. But the meetings themselves, they don't vote on things or have a parliamentary procedure. Come on, come on.
Yeah.
The committee meeting's at 2 o'clock on Thursdays, and everybody that wants to come to this one, here's what our agenda looks like. Come talk. And
I see us as actually doing things, not just talking.
so I didn't mean to give it a short shrift.
Yeah.
But
I
see,
see us as helping to create mission-based curriculum, especially for roundtable. And I think we need some new ideas. We've been trying to churn that out for years, and it's gotten pretty stale, I think. So we need other people to do that. And I see us observing roundtables, seeing how things are going, working with teachers, if they, if they're not comfortable with doing that. I mean, some of the science have to teach math at our school isn't necessarily something that's comfortable with our mission, even though they are, they know about it, they've read about it. So giving them support and things like that. So it wouldn't be, in my opinion, come on. I mean, we could have discussions in which anyone came. That could be part of what we do. But there would be times, I think, when we were going to want to decide what we're going to do and all that kind of
Go
thing.
take on some more. Okay. Open to the suggestions. I'm taking it in for the first time here with everyone else. Do you suppose that this would be a committee that would regularly report to the board as a part of our regular agenda, the way the policy committee does?
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's
Absolutely.
okay. So we seem to have some of the ingredients that could be formalized into a, I don't know, call it a charter or a committee or something, but that we could look at a future meeting of the board and see those details of who's and what's, and then vote on it and move it ahead. But I think as a general sense, I haven't heard any board members object to the idea.
No, I think it's a wonderful idea.
So I will write something up.
Thank you for that. Thank you for coming up with the idea. That's excellent. Item 7C on our agenda is homework after school program.
So just a brief mention of it, the school with Mrs. Hayes has taken on Title I grant writing for us, and we have some Title I funds. So we are exploring the idea of a Title I program after school, going through the details, trying to figure out how this will all work. Put it on the radar that for next year, that is something that we would like to launch.
Okay. Any comments or questions about that? Sounds like another very worthy idea. Item 7D on our agenda is our PTSA report.
So Elizabeth is taking some well-deserved time away from this fabulous school with her family. And she asked me to just touch on some of the things. First, it was thank everybody here at the table who supported us so much and trusted us with giving us submissions that we've been able to go out and do this year. Thank you very much for that. So it's actually been a really full year for us. It was our first full year. So we had the fall festival. We raised about $1,400-ish. And we were able to purchase some new folding chairs for the ones that, you used to sit in and then fall on the floor. So we did that. We raised about $1,000, and we decided that that was going to go towards health and wellness, one of the supporting factors of the PTSA. And what we did was we took $500 and put that to the House of Reps for Field Day, and then we purchased new, or assisted to purchase new gym equipment for $500. And then we also, in wanting to support community, that was very important as we were putting the PTSA together, was to kind of support parents and teachers and students all getting to know each other. I know in other charter schools, we charter schools have to be an intentional community, because people are coming from so many different communities, and it's not just you can walk out the door and, as you're shoveling on Christmas time, be able to say, hey, we have to actually decide to be together. So we did a number of restaurant nights, and the restaurant nights were able to both foster that community as well as help us be able to have some funds to be able to go do other things for the school. We were also able to, during the summer send-off, which was fabulously attended, we had so much fun. We were able to open it up to some of the incoming families so that the incoming kids could actually see that there are other normal kids and they like to play games and do fun things. And we chose that fundraising event was going to be to raise Chromebooks for the school. So we raised about $4,200 after expenses. So we'll be working with Mrs. Marquardt to make sure we get exactly what she wants for the building. And we will keep raising funds until every room has enough Chromebooks to feel that they are sufficiently staffed so that the school can run. We are in Google Classroom, so let's do it. She wanted to make sure that she reached out and thanked a number of people who have been instrumental in this. One who is a teacher who is consistently there for us, and that's Mrs. Nichols, who is always there and always willing to do anything. The craziest thing we can ask her to do, she's the happiest to go to. And we are incredibly thankful for that. And there is a number of other people, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to submit her notes to Lauren so that it can be attached to the agenda, because I think it's important to recognize everybody that she's called out. So thank you for a great year. We had a really great time. I know it was a ton of work for everybody. We have a bunch of new committees that are coming up, and we're looking forward to our new families who are coming to the school as well.
Thank you for the fantastic report, and thank you to Mrs. Sample and the whole PTSA for all of that work. I'm glad you had a really full year, but it's you treating us to that hard work. You don't thank us for that. We thank you.
Well, you guys all personally helped us as well. You financially helped to support us. We got us over humps. We got businesses here that are helping us. So really, it is a true heartfelt thank you.
Everybody pulling the wagon in the same direction.
Absolutely.
thank you for that. Any other questions about the BTSA report?
I just think they've done an absolute standout job this year. You really have. You've supported the school, and the Chromebooks are going to be so appreciated. It's, so many kids need them in the building.
Yeah, we're not done. Our goal was 50, and we didn't know where we were gonna, we do a lot of first annuals. So we might actually have a fall festival, because that will be the second annual, and we might actually have a second annual Somerset Hop. So we'll just keep going until the Chromebooks are here that you need.
You know what the budget number is for, I mean, I don't know at what price you buy Chromebooks for.
So Joanna Marcotte is digging into that as hard as she can for us, but I'll get you that info.
Mhm. Thank you.
Excellent. Other comments or questions about the PTSA report? Before we go on to item 8, which is our public comments, I want to take a moment to recognize that one amongst us is enjoying his last board meeting after a long tenure and a little bit of the chairman's seat and all of that. And so Matt's position on our board is as a business representative, and today we get to thank him for all the work that he had done for that and the amazing contribution, and tomorrow continues the work to find someone willing to fill that role on our board. But for today, let's just start with thank you so much for everything that you've done. It's been a real privilege to serve alongside of you.
Thank you. Vice versa.
What's that?
And vice versa. And I've enjoyed all the relationships here on the board. Part of me is relieved, part of me is very sad. I believe vigorously in the mission of the school, and I believe in everything that goes on here. Again, that part of me is disappointed to be going, but there comes all good things must end. So I thank you all for your help and your friendship. It's been a good thing.
Thank you for saying so. You'll definitely be missed. You might call you back anyway. You can't stand down until you're relieved. Is that the way this is going to work?
I will take the call.
Excellent. Thank you so
He'll
much.
still be around too. Just have acapella.
Yes, that's very true. If that completes item 7 on our agenda, item 8 is the public comments. You have an individual that signed up for public comments, so let's go through policy BEDH, which we will read as we always do. Policy BEDH is the public participation at board meetings. In order to assure that persons who wish to appear before the board may be heard, at the same time it may conduct its meetings properly and efficiently, the board adopts its policy of the following procedures and rules pertaining to public participation at board meetings. With an effort to ensure that all members of our school community have the opportunity to address the board, public comments will be moved to number 8 on the agenda. Each person will have up to 3 minutes in which to speak, and there will be no limit to the number of speakers. Members of the public may offer comments on agenda items only. The board will not entertain comments or on items that do not appear on the agenda. Requests to address the board on matters not on the agenda must be presented to the dean and must set forth the specifics of the subject to be addressed. When appropriate, the board may place such requests on the agenda. Consistent with RSA 91A3, policy BEDB, and the laws pertaining to student and family privacy rights, the board will not place any matter on the public agenda that is to be properly discussed in a non-public session. Complaints regarding individual employees, personnel, and students will be directed to the director in accord with policy KE and KEB. All speakers are to conduct themselves in a civil manner. Obscene, libelous, defamatory, or violent statements will be considered out of order and will not be tolerated. The board chair may terminate the speaker's privilege of address if the speaker does not follow the rule of order. Persons appearing before the board are reminded that members of the board are without authority to act independently as individuals in official matters. Thus, the questions may be directed to individual board members, but answers must be deferred pending consideration by the full board. That is policy BEDH. And the member of the public signed up to speak is Mrs. Patrice Bernard.
Thank you, Chairman Best. I would like to, before I get into what I want to speak about, I would like to thank Mr. McKenzie for bringing up those standards. It would have not only helped but I could have been out of here a week ago. Because had those things been prevalent, our gifted students would know ahead of time. Had he taken 2 courses last summer, we could have graduated and we'd gone. So not only do you help the students who are failing and hopefully giving them some encouragement, but you would help your gifted students move ahead. So I would urge you to get those out to all the parents as well as yourselves, but you need input from the parents as well, because this is going to be a factor. Manchester requires a very simple, similar thing, but it's very simple. 4 credits to be a sophomore, 9 credits to be a junior, 15 credits to be a senior, and it's black and white. Do not sit with your class in the gym for the assembly if you don't have those credits. You sit with the class you have the credits for. That's the way it's done everywhere. You are with your social peers when you're with your academic peers. The other thing I wanted to speak to you about was graduation. I would ask you to come up with a policy for class ranking, because that is very important for scholarships and for some colleges. I would like to congratulate Mr. Bartlett for being the valedictorian of the class and Mrs. Petro for being the salutatorian of the class. Unfortunately, you did not give them the benefit of class rank or of acknowledging their abilities by giving them the opportunity to speak at graduation. It is the only time when it's not supposed to be a popularity contest. Instead of acknowledging their exceptionalism and giving them a chance to speak, you didn't acknowledge their hard work and you turned it into a popularity contest so the speaker was someone who won a popular vote. That is everything, that is the antithesis of what American exceptionalism is. And it really hurts our students when they're looking for scholarships in colleges. So I would encourage you to look at your policy committee, maybe you can refer to policy, but you need to have class rank, weighted or unweighted, maybe start somewhere, and you need to have acknowledge the valedictorian and the salutatorian. Class speeches can be given by a class president. If you look at Manchester speeches and the graduations, you'll see it, but valedictorian speech is not a popularity contest. It goes to the person with the highest GPA in the class. It's the one thing that they should get. Thank you.
There being no other individuals who have signed up to offer public comments, nobody else in the room either, we'll close item 8 on our agenda. Are there any indications that we need to enter into a non-public session for tonight? We will. How's that?
That's exciting.
Like ecstatic. Woo! Get home early.
I kind of forget how long I've been here, but that's never happened. Not even once.
Not in my tenure either.
Not even once. So we'll put one in a row. We'll put up one of those little charts of accident for you. One.
Days
two.
about non-public.
Our next meeting is August 21, 2019 at 5:30 p.m. That means that there is no July meeting. This brings us to our August 21, 2019 meeting. That reminds me that I think when Greg was presenting some of the materials, he was suggesting a vote at our July meeting. Obviously, it must have been our August meeting. We have a July meeting. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? We're adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.